It became self-sustaining 5 years ago. And before that, for about 10 years, the better part of a decade, was kind of the side hustle to even just lay the foundations of it. I was like, okay, now is the time to either, make the jump or realize I'm not going to do this. And I went and did it. The pandemic changed everything for me. It was an interesting realization to come to that I don't want to keep doing this forever. Like, this is definitely going to kill me eventually. And at the same time, I hit a little bit of financial stability in my life for like the first time in my life. And I had the option to take the chance. And it was a short window. I only had about 3 or 4 months to really figure out if I could do this or if I had to go and get a job at Starbucks. But I'd laid the foundations. I'd done a lot of speaking, which I was now getting paid for. I quit my job. It was 2 months. 2 months, I replaced my entire monthly wage, but only working half the amount of hours.
Wow. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Pint and Portal Author Podcast. I am so excited to have you here. My name is Herman Stewart-Nagel. I am your host, and I am speaking with Andrew Buckley. Andrew is a good friend of mine. We know each other from conferences in the Okanagan, but today we're talking about Andrew's path to success, which is unique from just any other author I have talked to. He has used speaking and workshops as a way to fuel and fund his author career. And I know a lot of you, like me, are introverts, and the thought of that sounds absolutely terrifying. But don't turn away, because Andrew's story is inspiring and it just gives you a glimpse into another way to make this author dream happen. I had a great time with Andrew. We had a fun conversation. If you have ever thought of other ways that perhaps you could fuel your author career and what it takes to kind of build your name in the industry, this is a great conversation to listen to. Andrew is both self-published and traditionally published, so he gives us a bit of that hybrid perspective, as well as just another avenue to make your author dreams come true. I will also note that for the next few weeks, you will not be getting this sort of introduction from me. I will be traveling. I will be in Victoria for the Fan Island Comic-Con on June 5th and 6th. If you're in that area, please go check it out. It's going to be a great time. And then after that, I will be headed to London for the self-publishing show there in England. And then my family and I will be having a bit of a holiday after that. So it's going to be great. But I will be on the road and I will not have time to record these introductions. So for the next few weeks, we'll be jumping right in. I've got Andy Palaquin on. I've got Michael McKell and Adam Bassett, as well as a couple of replays from some live recordings that I have done over the last couple of months. Michael Van Day and Adrian M. Gibson both chatted about their upcoming releases. They were great conversations, but that's what you can expect the next couple of weeks. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss those conversations. They are going to be fantastic, and I know you are not going to want to miss them. Thank you for tuning in, and let us get on with the conversation today. Before we get into today's conversation, I just want to take a minute to talk to you about getting paid and paying for services as an author. If you've published a book, you know that there are a number of services involved that you have to pay for. And those services, if you're self-published, don't all come from the same place. For example, I recently had to pay for my cover designer in US dollars, for my map in British pounds, and for my artwork in euros. And guess what? I'm Canadian, so my main bank account is in Canadian dollars. Never mind that I get paid from Amazon in pounds, euros, US dollars, Canadian dollars, all depending on where the reader lives, which, don't get me wrong, is an amazing problem to have. I absolutely love that my books are being purchased around the world. But guess what? If you're converting currencies either to or from a service member, you're losing money on fees, both to your bank, to the credit card issuer, to PayPal, to whoever you might be paying or receiving payments from. That's why I use a service called Wise. Wise is one of the sponsors of today's show, but I have been using Wise for years, because Wise is a service that is designed specifically for people who deal with international payments. whether you're receiving payments or paying for service in currencies other than your own. Wise has the best exchange rates that I've been able to find on the market. You can use Wise to send international transfers to up to 80 different countries directly from one bank account to another. So when I had my map designed, I paid in euros using Wise. For being a listener of the show, you'll get a free international transfer of up to 800 Canadian dollars. And at today's rate, that's just over 550 US dollars. So please click on the description in the comments below or head to www.pintandportal.com/deals to get started. Thank you so much. And now let's get on with the interview. Welcome once again to the Pint and Portal Author Podcast. Today, I've got my good friend Andrew Buckley in with me today. We're going to chat all about his author life, about how he does things a little bit differently than some of you might expect from an author. And yeah, welcome here, Andrew.
Thank you so much for having me, Herman. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So, Andrew, I'm familiar with you a little bit because we've done a few conferences together. We did a panel together, I think, in Enderby. We've done, a few things here and there because we were both in the Okanagan for a while. And it's great to have you back. It's been a while since we've chatted. So, but for those of you, or for those of our listeners who may not be as familiar with you, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, I can. Twisty-turny journey of mine. Primarily, I identify as a speculative fiction author, which isn't even thoroughly accurate anymore, I don't think, but I don't know what to call myself otherwise.
Okay,
multi-genre.
multi-genre.
Is really, really it. So for the most part, I write a lot of paranormal fantasy, horror, and absurdist humor. That's kind of my sweet spot, and it's a weird interjection of things. But
Right.
That's mostly where most of my genre comes from. I have written spy thriller. I still write a fair amount of fairy tale fantasy. I just find at this particular stage of my life, I seem to be delving more into absurdist humor and more into horror, and not necessarily together, but sometimes together. And so that's kind of my primary overarching thing. And then beneath that, I am also a screenwriter, a credited screenwriter now, which I wasn't 3 years ago, which has been a big change in the trajectory of my career. I'm also a speaker, keynoted several times now, and I do spend a lot of time, as you know, traveling to conferences and talking about writing and publishing and everything in between. That is kind of me in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. You've got such a broad gamut of things that you do, which is really cool and really interesting. And I think, fills in some pieces that other authors, are maybe surpasses their expectations as far as sitting at a desk and trying to hash out words all day. But, and Andrew, I don't even know, like, how long have you been writing for? Like, how long has this been your thing for?
Okay, so writing has been my thing forever. Like, I was not a good student, Herman. I was never ever very academic. So it always came down to English. English and creative writing was my strong suit. It was the thing I was naturally good at. Grew up as an only child, so I always had a really big imagination attached to everything that I did. And the writing came naturally at first. And so it always became a thing that I wanted to do. So I did. And I went through several different kind of iterations of what that might look like. Journalism was going to be a thing at one point in my early life. That transitioned into that combined with my love of movies and became screenwriting. And that's kind of what I really, really wanted to do in my early 20s. And then through a experiential distaste of the film industry, I switched into novel writing, and I built my career as a novel writer. But my first book, realistically, we're talking timeline, was not contracted until 2010, I think, with publication in 2011.
And is that, yeah, and I guess just to kind of pull at some of those threads, at, what point did it become your career? Like, was it kind of always kind of your career and then eventually kind of rolled into it? Or was there kind of a defining moment that, okay, this was when your writing career started?
It's a good question. It became self-sustaining 5 years ago. And before that, for about 10 years, the better part of a decade, was kind of the side hustle to even just lay the foundations of it. During those 10 years, I was traditionally published several times with two different publishers, found my first, at that time, my first literary agent, and I started speaking public. I started speaking schools first, and then my first conferences was in 2019. So a lot of the groundwork was being laid while I was also working 9 to 5, more than 9 to 5, as a copywriter and then content manager. So making use of my writing in a very different way.
Hmm.
And all the time I had this side hustle of I'm going to be an author. I'm going to be an author. But it didn't happen until 5 years ago, end of 2021, beginning of 2022. I was like, okay, now is the time to either, make the jump or realize I'm not going to do this. And I went and did it.
Okay.
And now I do it.
Very cool. Yeah, and I didn't realize it was actually that recent for you either. But, so yeah, I mean, that's such a relatable story, I think, for so many of us doing it as a side hustle and hoping it's gonna, hit and become something more. I'm interested though, because I've always wondered about this. Your day job was, you were saying copy editing and other writing. That wasn't necessarily the writing you wanted to do. Did you find that that hindered the writing you did wanna do? Like, were you too tired of writing at the end of the day or at the end of the week to get your own words down? Like, was that a struggle?
I want to say yes, but I was also highly motivated. So I was working for a variety of different clients through a marketing agency that employed me. And before that, for a post secondary school, it employed me for the same reasons. And it was a drain. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, when you're writing web copy, I mean, you work in this field, like web copy, social media copy, all that kind of crap. It is kind of draining, but I was also highly motivated because I'd already got my first two publishing contracts. I had a literary agent, like I had it, and it's kind of weird. My biggest success, like singular wise, as far as publishing was concerned, happened while I was still working full time. And with that particular success, which was Hair in All Wrong Places, which was originally published by the George McBride Media Group, got picked up by Scholastic, and so Scholastic is like
Mm,
the big thing in schools, and that was
right.
huge, and that was a big bump in my career. But even at that particular point, which I think was around about 2014, 15, I was still like, not going to give up the day job. And I kept
Right.
this for an additional 6 years after that even happened. Yeah, it was kind of interesting how that all kind of
Yeah.
transpired. But it was draining, but I had motivation to keep writing. So my writing, and I had young kids, I was working 40 plus hours a week, was all 10 p.m. onwards. Everybody would go to bed. I would sit in bed with my laptop and click away, and I would write whatever the next thing was.
Your main stream of income when you get, maybe, one flash and you don't know if you're going to get that again. So you don't want to bank on that when you've been trying for so long to get to that point, to believe that that's something that you can maintain
Mhm.
is I definitely understand holding on to the day job in
Yeah,
order to do that.
I'd seen people do it. Like when I worked for a publisher in 2011 to 2016 ish, and I was acquisitions editor, and then I was VP of production for a while, and it was a small publisher in the US, and we saw lots of people kind of come and go. Contracted work. We saw new authors, do really well. Saw people struggle. We had one author I remember so specifically, like she got her publishing contract, and the day her book was actually released, she quit her day job, and she emailed the publisher. Like she emailed us and said, That's it. I quit my day job. I'm ready to be a full time author." And we were all like, "What?" Like, I mean, hold on. Like maybe wait to see how it does first. And 3 weeks later, she had to go get a job because, as you and I both know, it's never self sustaining right away, and it often takes
Mhm.
quite a bit of time and capacity to build to that. So
Right.
I was very
Yeah.
conscious of that reality.
Right. Yeah, and and in the trad pub space too, it's not like you get a paycheck the day after your book publishes. You're sometimes waiting up
You
to a
don't.
year to get that paycheck if you do, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not solely trad pub though, are you? Like you've got self-published books as well.
Yeah, I'm hybrid these days. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have two traditional actual novels, like traditionally published novels that are still out there. And I have five-ish independently published, self-published titles at this point. My new literary agent who I just signed with the beginning of this year, she is currently working to bring two new novels to market for traditional publishing. So I do both.
Bit of both. Okay. Cool, cool. So what was that moment, I guess, that you decided or that let you be able to decide that, you know what, I don't need the day job anymore. I'm going to do this full time. What was the turning point?
COVID, the pandemic,
Okay.
changed everything for me. It was an interesting realization to, as horrible as that time period was for everybody, it was an interesting realization to come to that I was killing myself working the way I was working.
Right.
And pandemic, for better for worse, gave me a different perspective on things. It's not like I even did a lot of writing during. I was one of those writers who did not do barely any writing during the pandemic, but it
Okay.
did give me work life balance in a way that I never realized before. And then I was like, man, I don't want to keep doing this forever. Like this is definitely going to kill me eventually. And at the same time, I hit a little bit of financial stability in my life for like the first time in my life. I finally hit like 40 and then found financial stability for the first time. And I had the option to take the chance. And it was a short window. I only had about 3 or 4 months to really like figure out if I could do this or if I had to go and get a job at Starbucks. But again, I'd laid the foundations. I'd done a lot of speaking, which I was now getting paid for. I'd set up freelance clients so that I could still do some copywriting, copy editing, but for the people that I chose to do it for, and for a much,
Right. Okay.
much higher rate than what I was getting paid with an agency.
Hmm.
And so I quit my job. I gave them 2 months notice to give them plenty of time to replace me. I walked out of the office in June 2022, I think, cried for a little bit in my car, and then got myself together. And it was 2 months. 2 months, I replaced my entire monthly wage, but only working half the amount of hours.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then it was just capacity increase from there on. Everything I've done since is just, I make a better income year over year ever since that point.
Right. Cool. That's a really cool story and a really good perspective because a lot of people, COVID was one of those tipping points for a lot of writers where they kind of decided that this is kind of the chance, right?
Yeah.
So now your income though isn't solely from book sales.
No.
You're doing a lot of speaking and other workshops and that sort of thing. Can you give us a bit of background? Like how did that all get started?
Like everything else, it was accidental.
Okay.
I I was never a public speaker. It was not the thing that I ever wanted to do. But when I released Hair in All the Wrong Places, 2014 was its first publication date, and my publisher said, "Hey, you should probably go into schools and talk about this." I'm like, I don't want to go and talk to a bunch of kids about this book that's for kids. That's ridiculous. But then it's not like I hadn't done public speaking in a previous marketing job. I'd done some stuff where I had to go into schools and tell them about digital arts programs and stuff. So it's not like I was unfamiliar with the audience. I still didn't love it. And I still had like horrible heart palpitations whenever I had to do that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
right.
I was never this kid when I was younger. I was the kid who turned beet red, like not my jam. I always think that like 12-year-old me would be horrified by the person I am today as a result of that. But it was my youngest kid. He was only 6 at the time, and his teacher librarian had heard that I published this book and was like, "Hey, can you come in and talk to our elementary kids for a day?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's my kid's school. Sure, I can do that." So I arranged it. I went in. I did like 3 or 4 sessions and talked about fairy tales because I love fairy tales. And at the end of the day, she was like, "Great, that was awesome. How much do I owe you for these sessions?" And I was like, "I get paid to do this?" And had literally no idea, no knowledge base. And it was actually, she brought me into another author talk so I could speak to that gentleman about it. I forget what his name was, but that was kind of the start of the whole speaking thing. And then I realized quickly that if I develop the workshops and I keep it simple, well, so many authors overcomplicate it, and I keep it really interactive and energetic, it's something that could actually be a supplemental income. And it did. It was definitely a side hustle for all those years. That transpired into me pitching to writing conferences because then I'm like, I should probably talk to adults about this stuff as well as kids. Las Vegas was the first one that took me on. So I started at a high point with a really big conference, and then COVID hit and kind of jarred everything for a year and a bit, and then
Right.
I just picked it back up once everything was open again. And as I said, like last year I did 26 conferences. The year before that I did 21. It's become a big part of my ability to sell books, my ability to tap into audience, and my ability to supplement my income by literally talking about writing. So yeah.
Yeah. Talking about writing and traveling, which is, I mean, kind of a cool perk because you're able to see all these different places. Uh, as well.
Yeah,
I don't know
pros and
if
pros and
it
cons,
probably gets
Herman.
old. Gets old after a while, maybe. But
Yeah, I think I counted my number of flights last year, and it was something like 38 flights I was on or something like that.
wow.
In the one hand, yeah, I'm never going to complain about this because nothing is ever going to be as crappy as working, a 40-hour week for a job that I didn't like. I don't want to downplay that. I mean, social media shows definitely one side of everything, but at the same time, it's work. It's still work, and
Right.
it is exhausting. And shifting between time zones and making connection flights and accommodations and transportation and schedules. If you saw my Google Calendar, you'd cry. Like it's an absolute nightmare. But I still love it all.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, to your point, and I know I've had a couple of conversations where that point has come out. It's like it might not be your favorite part of it, but when you think whether you'd rather be doing that or sitting at a day job that you aren't interested in at all, it wins out still, right? So,
It's all perspective. Like it's work, but work lands me in Mexico every November to speak at a conference, and I'm not going to complain about a free trip to Mexico every fall. Or I was invited to go to Stockholm next year to speak at their writers festival, and I'm like, well, I've never been to Stockholm, so I mean, I'm never gonna. It's always going to be worth it in the end. And
yeah.
the more people see me speak, like the more they come and buy my books, and the more this career keeps sustaining and going.
Yeah. So, what are your topics usually when you go to these different conferences? Do you have a set list of different workshops, or is it something different every time? Does it really depend on what venue it is?
It grows and grows and grows. So when I started, I had a fairy tale workshop, and it was the only thing that I had, and that's what I shopped around. And I still teach that version of that workshop today because it's just eternally popular. As I spoke more, and especially as I revisited the same schools, revisited our conferences would have me back year over year, or they'd rest me for a year and then bring me back, I found that I had to obviously expand. And then I started teaching online as well for organizations like the Federation of BC Writers, like the Alexander Writer Center Society out of Calgary. And recently, like I have my own platform called Wild Writers Studio with Finney and Burnett. I started to expand out, have easily 30, 40 sessions that can be taught at conferences and work and festivals and schools these days. So I teach on everything. I try to stick with obviously stuff that interests me personally. I have the fairy tale one, I have a horror presentation, I have a mystery one, so it's a lot of genre stuff. I have structure, I have plotting, I have character, I have dialogue, all these different versions. I have a lot of prompt writing classes to get people thinking outside the box. There's all sorts. Throw a rock and I've probably taught something about it at this point.
Right, right. Yeah, it's so fascinating because I think you're the only person I've ever talked to that does this. I know people are out there, but that even you can make an income, whether it's part of your income or all of your income, doing these sorts of sessions. With that, I mean, because I know last year you said that you had 38 sessions or whatever that number was. How do you find time to write in between all planning for these sessions and traveling?
I always tell the joke when I stand in front of people that I spend more time talking about writing than actually writing because it pays better, which is true, but it's the writing that feeds the speaking, and the speaking feeds the writing, and it's just this. What's that Greek thing with the snake eating its tail? It's that thing. That's
Right.
what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
basically stuck in. So yeah, it's interesting the way that it's kind of grown in a way that I didn't expect it to, and the income that I have, I think, from the speaking stuff is a big chunk of my yearly income as an author. But I know that when I speak somewhere, it's impactful in that it does impact my book sales as well. So it's become a marketing machine that I'm probably never going to be able to shut off. I guess I think I
Right,
still
right.
have to always do this because it's expected now. I have a name for it, which is weird.
Yeah, yeah. So you didn't really answer my question, but that's okay.
No, I did. What was your question again? Sorry, I think
When
I
when do
tangented.
you kind of have when do you write? When do you actually write?
Oh, when
Like,
do
are
I
you
write?
writing
Right, that was
on
the
the
question.
plane, or are you writing?
The short answer is yeah. I write in between everything. It's the only time I get to. This year I've done I haven't done a good job yet, but it's only May. I've got plenty of time. I've
Mhm.
tried to rebalance myself a little bit so that I'm doing a little bit less of the conference and travel stuff so I can have time to write because I have deliverables and I have to actually deliver manuscripts and such. So I've made it a little bit better, but it is realistically. I was stuck in Vancouver Airport for like 13 hours last week for one day, and I spent a good chunk of that time writing and also answering emails and scheduling and creating some workshops and, but it's always on the in between. So a lot of airports, a lot of hotels.
I bet. Yeah. And I can't even imagine how much admin must be involved in scheduling, booking, and getting to conferences like that.
Yeah, it's chaotic. I took on a personal assistant for the first time last year, which has been extremely beneficial. And I did switch. I have a new assistant that started this year, and she's absolutely amazing. And she makes my life a lot easier. Without her, I don't know what it would look like. It would be very, very messy. So, yeah, it's kind of fun to be at the capacity for that I do require somebody to manage that stuff, but the admin is a lot.
Hmm.
It's true.
Yeah, right. So, so you did the first speaking, your first speaking engagement at your daughter's school. After that, and after you realize, hey, this is something I might be able to turn into an income, how did you approach it? Like, if someone's listening to this and thinking, okay, I could do this. How do I start? What did that look like after that initial speaking engagement for you?
It was part of it was word of mouth. The teacher that originally brought me in told other teachers about me, and it kind of spread organically that way. I
Okay.
quickly developed, when I figured out this was something that could be an income stream, I developed process around it, as I do with everything, so that I had certain, and emails that would go out at certain times of the year. I started to scrape and gather, as many email addresses as possible for teachers. And I started local here in the Okanagan. Since then, I've spoken a lot in Alberta, a lot down on the coast, in the US as well. And it just became something that had to be built like anything else.
Hmm.
But the real game changer for the school stuff, if anybody is thinking about doing school stuff, is speaking at teacher conferences, because they all have teacher conferences every year. Alberta, in particular, where you are currently residing, has an absolute ton of them every year. It's very well
Right.
organized and funded. But by doing that, they stick me in front of a crowd of hundreds where I do my thing. They all see it. I give them my material so they can do it in their classrooms, but that gives me a massive amount of access to build my mailing list for speaking engagements in schools.
So, so realistically, you started, maybe small, but a lot of that grew just through networking and business development. Because really you're an entrepreneur, you're not just a writer and you're not just a speaker. You built
Yeah.
your own, business.
Yeah, and multifaceted as well. I mean, the speaking is one thing, teaching and Wild Rider Studio is another thing, Deadly Dinner Parties is another thing, and all these things swirl around the fact that I am an author who writes books and screenplays and such. And but yeah, it's a maelstrom of what I hope is a perfect storm. Maybe there's a better way to do all this, Herman. I don't know, but this has been the thing that's been paying the bills. So I think
Yeah.
this is
Well, it's worked.
this is yeah, it's worked. It's worked. So I guess I keep at it.
Yeah, right. I've only like I come from the business world as well to some degree.
Yeah.
Like I was in banking for a while and that sort of thing, and then built my own web design business. So, I've always seen the value in networking, and authors don't like it to call it networking, but but that's what it is. Going to these engagements, you're meeting people. You said it grew organically. That's what networking is getting your face and name in front of people, right? And I'm a big
Yeah.
believer that even as authors, that is a useful tool for us to build our business. And I think that is a great example of that.
Well, you have to today. It's different. I always talk about the examples from like, pre-digital age where, authors were they're just a name on a cover or and they're a bio
Yes.
page in the book. Like that's you didn't consider them to be human essentially. They were writers and they were hidden
Hmm.
behind this, magical veil where you never got to see them. Social media like screwed all that up and made it this thing where I mean you're fantastic. Your social media game is incredible and
Like, yeah.
you put yourself out there and I've seen you and I have tabled together at conferences and we've done those events and everything. And that ability to humanize yourself, to be more than just a name on a page or on a cover, that's what sells books. That's what gets you readership. That's what builds your audience. You have to do all that. And it's a scary concept for a lot of authors who are not comfortable doing that.
I'm like you. I would prefer not to stand in front of people and talk about my books if I,
Mhm.
if I didn't have to. But I think especially, and I've said this on previous episodes, that as we move into an age where AI is becoming more and more of a thing, being a person is what's going to allow us to stand out, right? As authors, regardless of how good or not good AI becomes at creating a story. Right now, it's not good. I don't know if it'll
Sure.
ever will be, but at the same time, in a flood of story, good or bad, there still has to be something human about you that rises, allows you to rise above that. Um, and I at this point in an author career, I don't know if there's any way around it.
I don't I don't think so. Like everybody always asks they want to be that person who is like such a big bestseller hit that they never have to do any of that stuff. But even those like I mean, if you point a finger at like the biggest selling authors today, I mean, other than like the Stephen Kings who've been around forever, but like the Sarah J. Masses or the Rebecca Yarroses who are the voices in romantasy, like they're worked to death, not just with the writing, but all the readings and public appearances and Q&As. Like
Oh
you
yeah,
don't get a
like
you don't get to not do it.
I think of someone like Brandon Sanderson, who is,
That's another
arguably
great
one
example.
of the biggest fantasy authors out there right now. And he's got a podcast, he's doing events, I don't know how he writes as much as he writes because he is doing so many other things as
He
well. But
started his own conference. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
I mean, how crazy do you have to be you know what? I've
And I
crossed
know
so
he's
many
got a
things off
team,
my list. Yeah, he of course he must
right?
have a team.
But
Yeah.
But even then, even just to have to show up to everything that he's doing is wild to me. Because I can't even I mean, I wouldn't even be able to keep track of his schedule, never mind follow it. Um, and then write 3 books a year in addition, in addition to that, right? So,
That is
but like to
crazy.
the original point, even he has to do those things. He wouldn't be as big as he is if he just sat back after Wheel of Time and Mistborn came out, people wouldn't know who he is. And I think that a lot more people who maybe aren't as entrenched in the book scene probably would recognize at least his name, if not his face, right? More so than a lot of other authors.
I think that's totally true. It's relevance. We're all
Yes.
fighting for relevance, and all these things that we do, these conferences, festivals, the readings, the Q&As, the book signings, the social media, it's relevance, and it's not a quick build. I don't want anybody to take away that this is an easy thing to do. It's, as you know, the amount of content you have to create to do this is ridiculous. And I don't know how you specifically do it
I
either,
don't
because
know
I know
either.
you work a lot and you have all this other stuff on the go. But I know how difficult it is for me to keep doing all that stuff. But the payoff, when you start to see the payoff, that's kind of when it becomes. I had my best day, I think, at the Vernon Comic Con this past weekend, which is small town Comic Con. Like Vernon's not massive, but it has a great, crazy number. I did more sales there than I've done at any other Comic Con thus far in my career, I think. But it was a lot of people coming up to me saying, "Man, I saw you speak at the Surrey Writers Conference a couple of years ago. So it was a great presentation. I was at one of your Pro D sessions when you came to blah blah blah. So I wanted to come and pick up a book."
Hmm.
All that networking, all that putting yourself out there, like it pays
Yeah.
eventually, but it's not an instantaneous. You gotta build it. It's what's the Kevin Costner movie, like the build it, they will come, the Field of Dreams thing.
Right. Keep
Like
it. Yeah.
it's
If you build it, they
literally
will
that.
come.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it takes time, and I mean, I'm always surprised. I don't do a lot of in-person events, but the one I do, and I'm at a table, and I have people coming up to me telling me that they've seen me on social media, it really just throws me off. Because I'm like, really? I mean, because we don't get to see who's watching the content on the other side of it. So when you have someone in person that comes up to you, it's like, oh yeah, there's actually real people that are consuming this content, which is, and I'm like, that's great. It means I'm doing, it means it's working. You're seeing this. It's fantastic.
the numbers are real. The statistics are
Yeah, right.
real.
But it is a long game, and yeah, I do a lot. Some of it works and some of it doesn't, and I put a lot of hours in. I mean, I don't have kids, I can use extra hours to do some of this stuff. So yeah, I do a lot, but you don't have to do everything either. That's, I think, the thing
No.
that overwhelms authors a lot of times is they see 100 different things that they could do and they try to do it all, and that's difficult and not, if not impossible. There's just too much.
Yeah, it's the marketing world is overwhelming. I mean, you know this coming from corporate background as well, and plus as an entrepreneur, like it's a minefield, right? It's and there's so much out there. I still hold one regular teaching contract where I teach marketing and communications for a school in Edmonton, like every morning at like 7 a.m. BC time. And It's the whole concept around it is to show these students everything. This is your entire marketing toolbox. Should you do everything in this toolbox? No, because you'll be dead. But you should pick and choose the things that are going to appeal to your reader, your audience, and what you also feel good about doing. You're really good at putting yourself on video. A lot of authors really do not want to put themselves on video. So maybe that's not what they lean into. Maybe they lean into something else. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? And some of those things is about stepping outside of your comfort zone too, because I tell you, I'm okay doing this now. I have not always been okay doing video. I it took me a while to get onto TikTok because one, I thought it was just dancing kids, and I'm like, I don't have time to do dances or skits or anything. You know, and even now, I don't talk a lot on my videos on TikTok, mostly because those videos don't do well. So I try to watch what actually engages my readers. But even doing a podcast, the first podcast that I was a guest on, I was terrified to be on. And it was, I mean, so easygoing, but it just is something that I was not comfortable doing or used to. But you build in kind of a shell over time and you just get used to it. And now, I mean, I'm doing these now and it's just like, well, I'm just talking to author friends and I'm just
yeah.
hanging out with other authors, right? It's not scary. But, it's intimidating because there's so many different things that someone could do as an author to try to reach readers, but it's also in a lot of ways a good thing because it means there's probably something out there that you will enjoy doing that you can do to market your book, right? And I think, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it might be the thing that you don't expect either. That can be it. You might think something is terrifying and then you may end up loving it. The public speaking thing, I mean, I'm an introvert by nature and I'm always going to be an introvert by nature. So after, a 3-day conference, I am mostly dead and I need time to recoup. But on the flip side of that, I love a crowd. Like I didn't used to, but now the bigger the better, the rowdier the better. Like I always say I chase the applause. Like that seems to be the thing that I'm going for. The applause and the laughs like drive me to a different place. And there's a lot of positivity that I get out of those experiences. But that is stuff that I never could have foreseen for myself and never would have predicted.
For sure. Yeah, because like you were saying, like public, like standing in front of your class or anything like that was something terrifying. I mean, I can relate to that. Even, there's something different stepping in front of a video screen or a video camera and stepping in front of a crowd that even if, I mean, I see my views and I mean, I can get tens of thousands of views on a TikTok video or something like that. But standing in front of 100 people is intimidating.
But you learn to
What's
love it.
the Right. What's the biggest crowd that you have spoken for? Do you know?
I don't know. I've done some big ones at schools that have been in the hundreds. I've knocked on close to some of the bigger conferences. I know that some of the teachers' conferences are definitely in the hundreds. I was in Saskatchewan with like a audience of like 600-700 people. So
Wow.
yeah, upwards to probably about 1,000 is probably the max I think I've talked to at once. But
It's a
it's a
huge crowd.
big audience, but really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go bigger. I'd go bigger. There's a
You're
there's a
selling
there's
out
a
football stadium.
let's do stadiums. There's a collective. There's a collective energy that comes with those experiences, and if you're not somebody who just stands at the front behind a podium and just talks, and you're somebody who moves and interacts and plays on the reactions, and like I've learned or taught myself to do, it's different. It's a different energy, and also you stick in their minds in a totally different way. That's why I see the spike in book sales when I speak. Kids go home super excited because I segregated them into being werewolves, vampires, or a witch, or that it garners a response.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions here. I guess first of all, where do you typically see the book sales correlate with those events? Are you selling in person and you're seeing the book sales there, or is it more like you said afterwards where people are going home and Googling you and finding your books later?
I see both. If I'm at an event and I'm speaking, I can usually sell out my books pretty easily. If I'm just at a marketplace to sell books, it's 50-50 split depending on what the audience is like. If I speak at an event, I do see a bump in book sales online for that month always. And part of that is just good marketing. I follow it up with, scan the QR code that's on the screen and you'll get taken to my website where you can, sign up for classes or book me or buy books or whatever else, right? It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's just It's part of the marketing machine.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe something I wouldn't have thought to even ask. So you're not just passively at a table at the event after you speak, you're also giving people a way to follow up and find you after the event. And is that
Yeah.
just simply, like you mentioned, QR codes, or what else are you doing to kind of capture that audience?
For events and such, I do give out stuff like I have, as I've seen, you have beautiful swag. I don't, it's not on my desk, it's on my cocktail, but I have the Pints and Portals coasters.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's QR codes mostly, especially on screens. If I find that when I'm doing, if I give a presentation or I give a speech or I give a keynote and I have access to a screen, I'll always throw up my final branding screen with my QR code. And inevitably, a whole bunch of people will scan it and go right to my mailing list and sign up or go to my website and purchase or whatever else. You've kind of got to, there's so much noise. You can't just trust that someone's going to see you and then go home and think about you. I mean, that's a lovely,
Hmm.
fond hope, but that's not usually what happens. So whatever way you can stick in their mind or at least their inbox, like that's kind of what you have to do, and
Yeah.
it's beneficial.
So how much are you relying then on your mailing list then to sell books? Like, is that one of your primary tools?
No, I completely underuse I have a good mailing list and I don't utilize it, and it's on my lengthy to-do list of things that I have to actually start to use more because I've spent years building a good mailing list and I don't use it in the way that it should be used.
Sure.
So yeah,
I
but
always ask, I seem to ask that of a few different people, and they're always like, no, so you're not the only one. But, it's one of those things that's
it's
easy to
work.
put off, right? It
Yeah.
is. It is. It is a lot of work to set those things up. And, because you want to build on, and I have found this in the last year, the longer you let it sit, the more pressure there is to have some sort of warm onboarding sequence so that you have a reason to email these people and be like, hey, remember me? You signed up a year and a half ago and haven't heard from me. You want you need or at least my feeling is I'm like, I need a warmer introduction to bring these people in than maybe I would have the day after the convention, right?
Yeah,
Whether
I
that's
I
true or
think
not.
I think I have a better system than I used to have. I'm just not consistent with the newsletter stuff of actually sending because I always wait until there's something exciting happening that I want to share. But I am good at transitioning people to other things. I think I am. Like if I teach a class, I always end with trying to get them to sign up for whatever the next thing is that I'm going to do. Or
Okay,
like
cool.
I do try and have a bit of a knock on effect with everything so that again, relevance, like it's, making sure that they remember who I am and that I remain relevant in this industry. I guess that's what I'm striving for.
No, and that's great. So yeah, so I mean that's good too. Like I mean, you have a system to bring them to the next thing. It's not, obviously as we mentioned, it's networking, right? And part of
Yeah.
that networking is keeping people kind of up to date with what you've got going on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, when it's different with like kids too, right? I have a lot of teen readers, obviously, because of what I write. And so I have a lot of, people sending emails about, when is this next book coming out or when are you going to write the fourth book in the Herald? All the Wrong Places series is the thing that I get all the time. And that's a different audience. They're super tech savvy. Like they are all about QR codes and not necessarily mailing lists, but following me on social media. I always see
Right.
social media numbers go up if I speak at a school
Hmm.
as opposed to a conference where I see an increase in some to my social media, but a lot to my mailing list. Like it's just the way that different age groups interact is always going to be a little bit different from place to place.
Yeah. Great. And which is, I think, also important in being available through different platforms as well, right? Is that you're reaching different people.
Yeah, but like you said, if you're on everything, you never have time to do anything.
Right.
So
Yeah,
pick and
but
choose.
I mean, you're sending I mean, yeah, you don't obviously you can't do everything, but if you have a newsletter that you're reaching a certain crowd and you've got your social media posts, you can reuse a lot of
Hmm.
content. I mean, I post the same thing to Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I mean, it's the
Yeah,
same
me
reel
too.
that goes to everything, right? But I'm always surprised that it's different people finding it. So,
Yeah, all caters to different audiences. Yeah, it's true.
yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned schools, teachers, obviously other writers because you're doing a lot of work with craft. Are there any other audiences that maybe someone might not consider as being a good audience to try to apply for a panel or something like that for doing these types of workshops?
Really randomly, I did a session for the government of Canada.
Really?
for the CRA one time. I taught them how to write fairy tales. Yeah, as part of like
Is that
their
is that is that what my taxes are? That's why
yeah.
my taxes are
It
so
went to
high.
pay for
Yeah.
me to teach them how to write fairy tales.
Well, so
It was kind.
I'm investing in fairy tales here.
You are. Which I think we all are when we invest in the government. Yeah, I mean that was just a weird random thing I was invited to do. But yeah, it's kind of super weird now I said it out loud. For the most part, the school's teacher conferences, writing conferences are mostly what I do. I do a small amount of Comic Cons. Comic Cons are great for tabling and panels. They're not great for workshops and those kinds of things. That's not why people go to them. So anytime I've been asked to do those and I've been like, okay, they've never been massively attended, but panels are always good and tabling is always a great experience as far as networking is concerned. I don't want to gush about Andy Palaquin because I literally just did that on a story centric one recently, but Andy Palaquin is like a killer person at a table, like one of the best
Very
I've
cool.
ever watched.
Yeah, you totally can. He'll be coming on in a few weeks, so we can.
He's also on mine in a few weeks. We'll have competing Andy Palaquin episodes
Here we
going.
go.
Yeah, he's he's a different dude when it comes to networking and selling. That guy can deliver. It's amazing. I think people overlook reading events all the time and the opportunity to read in front of a crowd because I think there's some value in that. And these that happen at coffee shops and libraries and those kinds of things. And they're not like
Mhm.
straight selling events, but they are really good transparency events. They're good awareness builders because, you know, so you read something and you're good at reading your own stuff. Like that's something that people do remember. Or writing retreats are another one that I recommend. I've been an author in residence at a few writers retreats now, and it's a dedicated, quite literally trapped audience for a number of days, and that is something else where you can explore. Yeah, writing conferences. There's a lot of value, whether it's even online or in person. Those are the
Right.
kind of top tier things to get.
Okay. Yeah. So now, for other than the events that you're invited to speak at, because I know as you've built your brand and your reputation, that starts to happen because people obviously hear you and they're like, "This would be a great guy for my event. Do you want to come speak here?" Where do you find these events? How do you know? Other than I know you talked about teachers, but other than that, how do you find a place to even approach um, to speak at?
It's legwork. You have to research. You have to look for the popular writers conferences, and every single conference is different. You know, teachers conferences pay very well because they're usually very well funded. So they pay your travel, they pay your accommodations. Writing conferences are so different on the spectrum of things. Some will invite you to go there and you get a discount on your ticket to attend that event that you are speaking at. Which I mean, it's fine because budgets are budgets, but at the same time, I'm not independently wealthy enough to be able to do those kinds of things as much as I would like to. Other
Hmm.
conferences will pay you a stipend, will pay your travel, will pay your accommodations, will do all kinds of things for you. It's just that you have to decide what you're willing to do. I monetize the majority of stuff that I do. I make sure I get paid for because this is my career. This pays my mortgage and for my kids and everything else. Like it's
Hmm.
not that I pay for my children or they're on a rent to own situation or anything, but it's my livelihood. So I
Hmm.
have to make sure that it's monetized. As much as I would love to go to all the places and speak at all the things and read everybody's work and answer everybody's questions about everything always, there's got to be balance to all of that.
Yeah, you have to pay the bills. So obviously you have to prioritize. There are obviously enough conferences out there that last year you did 38 or however many it was last year, and
26 last year.
26 last year. 20. All right, it was 26 last year, 15 this year. I was
Yeah.
like doubling something.
You're just adding things together. You're just doing math.
If it was 107 last year.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I just never slept.
Obviously, if there are that many conferences that you could go to, and there are likely more that you turn down, you have to prioritize the ones that are going to pay the bills, unless it's one you really want to be at anyway, right? So that's definitely understandable. Other
Yeah,
than conferences, sorry, go ahead.
well, I was gonna say I'll make allowances for certain things. It was a destination. Like the first one I did in Mexico, I got paid for the conference. I didn't get paid for travel or anything. Now I built enough of a reputation that everything gets covered. But y- y- that was like I get to go to Mexico. Like yeah, okay, I'll break even or I'll lose a little bit of money in order to go and speak at a conference in Mexico. Again, you pick and you choose, like you said.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So we are. I don't want to go too far over an hour here for for our time. But I am interested, other than conferences, what other avenues work well for you as far as either book sales or other income revenue is concerned?
Well, teaching is a big thing. Teaching online has driven book sales quite a lot and also pays on top of that. The podcast, Story Centric Podcast, which I've had you as a guest on before,
Mhm.
that has built into its own little interesting marketing machine, not only for networking purposes, but, again, the con I was at this weekend, I had a few people come up saying, "Hey, listen to your podcast. Like, I love this episode with blah, blah, blah." I was like, man, that's crazy.
Awesome.
People listen to this stuff. I have no idea. I thought it was just into a void.
It
So
sure
there's
feels
that.
that way sometimes, doesn't
It
it?
sure does. It sure does. Is anybody out there? Are you listening to my voice? There's that. There's offshoots. I started Deadly Dinner Parties because I literally wrote a workshop about writing murder mysteries, and I did it in the form of a murder mystery, like play out, like you would at a deadly dinner, like a dinner party. And then I was like, man, this could be a thing. And so then I started writing those packages and was like, oh, this is actually like something that could sell. And so that became an offshoot. Wild Riders Studio came about because Finian Burnett and I, who have co-wrote and co-taught together before, were like, man, we should have somewhere to house, our collective 100 courses or workshops that we have together and have somewhere where we can teach those on a regular basis. That's, just ours, so that if, the world explodes, we still have our thing working.
Right.
So, and all that stuff, it just adds to the marketing. Again, relevance. The more you have to talk about, the more you share. And that's without even going into like, the whole traditional publishing sphere of dealing with literature agents or, that marketplace, which is different than the self-published marketplace and everything that goes hand in hand with that. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. You're doing so much, and we haven't even talked about your script writing and movies and all that, which I don't know if we're gonna have time for this one, but because I know we didn't even mention it, but you're involved. I know you're involved in all that, in the last year or so.
Yeah.
But let's leave that to the side for now, because I think we'll have you back in the future and we can talk about script writing because I think
Sounds good.
that'd be fun. um, because yeah, that's a whole other avenue.
It's a whole
But
other
I
thing.
mean so you've developed these multiple streams of income and these multiple streams of reaching readers that wouldn't probably or necessarily have found you otherwise. But what fascinates me about the way you've done it is, I mean, it's so unique to any other author that I have come across. And I know there's probably more out there that have done this, but you're reaching readers in ways that most indies I don't think even know exist, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. I never think about it like that. But yeah, it is, I guess it is different in a lot of ways. And I wish I could say it was like grand architecture on my part, but it has honestly mostly been response and opportunity that has kind of put me on this particular path. And
Mhm.
like I said, I don't know if this is the right way or if I'm doing this to the best way possible. It seems, again, it pays my bills, and so I'm not going to
Yeah.
complain about it, and I enjoy it. And I mean, would I just want to be writing and doing nothing else, Herman? Would that ever be a thing? Yeah. I mean, of course, that's every author's dream, is just to write the books and put them out. It's not the reality of the industry, so
Yeah, yeah.
I'm happy.
Whether that's creating TikToks or podcasts or Kickstarters or, all of it is marketing in one form or the other. And yeah, those things enable us to do the writing, I think.
Yeah,
But I don't think there's a right way. If you're doing something you enjoy doing and it enables you to do the thing that you want to do,
yeah.
that's the biggest win, I think.
Yeah, you get to define what you see as your success, and whatever you decide is what success means to you. That's important to understand that about yourself. And once you understand that, then you know where you are, you know what you want to shoot for, and it gives you a little bit of trajectory to get there.
It's really cool. Well, I think that is a great place to leave it, Andrew. I want to thank you
Sounds good.
so much for joining me today. I'll be sure to link everything we talked about in the show notes. And but what is the best place for listeners to reach you or find you?
A central place, if you just go to andrewbuckleyauthor.com, that's my website where you can link to almost everything that I do. But if you follow me on Instagram, that is probably the most up to date, relevant information that gets released on a regular basis.
Very cool. Thank you once again, and look forward to chatting with you soon.
Thank you so much, Herman. I really appreciate you having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, you bet. Anytime.